Well, you just mentioned Jim Schwartz, and that's where we were going next anyway. But there was a report from Jay Glazer over the weekend that Browns, during this interview process, have said it's their preference for whoever comes in, and keyword preference, not necessarily a mandate, but a preference, to retain Jim Schwartz as defensive coordinator. That was Jay Glazer on Fox on Saturday. But when I put this in the group chat, you immediately responded with, well, that's, insert word I can't say on TV, stupid. Has your thoughts changed since Saturday when you sent that text?
No, this is why the Browns continue to be a terrible organization under Jimmy Haslam. Because no coach with options wants to be pushed in a direction. And Jimmy doesn't get this. And I know the Jimmy defenders, like my man Xavier P., shout out Xavier P., are going to say, well, they're not forcing him, they're just recommending. No good head coach wants to have assistants recommended to him. It's just a general attitude of the owner thinking he knows something. If Jim Schwartz is so valuable that you can't lose him, then make him the head coach. And if he's not the head coach, then he's not that valuable. So if you hire a coach, you have to trust him to pick his assistants. It's that simple. And so even the Browns, you're not hearing this on any other team looking for a new coach. Any of them. Have you guys, Mike, anybody, heard a report that the team is recommending this coach or recommending? Have you heard that about any other team? Anybody?
I haven't followed the other teams closely enough. I haven't followed all the headlines, so I don't know.
Mike follows everything. Mike, have you?
Have you heard of any other team that's fired their head coach but is basically saying, look, we'd
like you to, as the assistant coach, we'd like it.
But retainments happen all the time.
I have not seen that be something else. Another.
So why is it only the Browns? Because the Browns do things stupidly under Jimmy Haslam. It's that simple.
Or, and generally I agree with everything you just said. However, the Browns may be looking at Jim Schwartz as an example of someone I mentioned just a moment ago. A guy who is a great coordinator, a terrific coordinator with proven track record wherever he's gone. But as a head coach, he failed. He didn't turn, he turned Detroit around. He didn't get them to where they needed to go, and then they regressed. So I think maybe the Browns are looking at him as someone who has your skill set is defensive coordinator. We're going to pay you very well, and we want you to continue doing what you're doing. You're a very important part of us, and if you need to, name him an associate head coach or whatever, and give him the money that you think would keep him in that job. But maybe they've come to the decision that you just don't have what it takes to be a head coach. And to Jason's point earlier about this potentially being Mike McDaniel, like you get two shots at this.
If you're lucky. You get
Look
two
at how
bites
long Jim has cycled as a coordinator without getting another shot as a head coach.
I haven't heard any team requesting him for an interview.
I haven't either.
It's the
Browns. I think that has more to do to if he was 35, he'd be on everybody's list.
Reese and Schwartz, neither has been
asked
for an interview anywhere else for what it's worth.
Yes.
Again, Jim Schwartz is a fine coordinator.
You want to keep him as a DC, though, don't you?
I don't care. I want to hire the best head coach.
Yeah, I get
and if that coach doesn't want him, I want him.
We lost an offensive line coach a couple of years ago, and right before our eyes, we watched our entire line disintegrate.
That's about the talent more than the coach.
It was the same guys. The same guys came back.
No.
And they were all 6 months older than when they looked like Pro Bowlers. I mean, to diminish the impact of a coach.
How's the Titans' offensive line been?
No, Bull, I'm just talking about this is apples and apples because this is the guys he had.
Yeah.
You know, when Bill was here, they were playing at a Pro Bowl level. And he left, and suddenly we looked at it and said, we don't recognize this anymore. What happened?
2 years ago, everybody was hurt. And this year, it's 2 years later.
Well, so what you're saying is coaching doesn't matter at all?
I'm not saying it doesn't matter at all. Obviously, it's a factor. But I don't think veterans like Joel Bitonio and Ethan Pocic and Wyatt Teller are playing worse because of their coach. It affects rookies more than it would.
You played live.
Listen, coaching matters because if you.
I didn't say it doesn't matter. I'm saying it's not. It doesn't matter as much as you say.
Well, when you're the run game coordinator chooses how you block schemes up. So they tell you the blueprint, right? There's times where the Cleveland Browns, since Bill Callahan says not be here, they can't pick up twists, they can't pick up stunts, they leave linebackers coming free because they don't know their assignments.
Then why do the Titans stink on the offensive line?
It's a combination of two things. You can be terrible because you're not very good physically, or you could be terrible because you're not good physically and you still don't know who to block.
Two things can be true.
Right.
Bill Callahan is not the only guy who can coach offensive line.
Of course.
No,
but he was widely regarded as the guy.
But let's be real. Bill Callahan is a top 3 to 5
Absolutely.
offensive
Yes.
line
I
coach
don't think
that
there's
has
any question
ever
about
that.
touched
Yes.
down on this game.
And last year, they were not coached well at all.
Right.
It was a complete disaster to where Mike Vrabel was basically the O-line coach from about
Yeah.
week 3 on. This year, I have no idea with Bloomgren. Bloomgren is a disciple of the Callahan tree in terms of offensive line coaches.
They had a ton of injuries, too.
They had absolutely no talent at
Right.
tackle.
Yeah.
The interior, I don't think was as bad as people think.
I actually think the offensive
tackles
line
were
played a
horrendous.
little better as the
So,
season
Paul,
went along.
let me
They
phrase
did.
it this way.
Yeah.
If you had your pick,
Yeah.
would you rather Schwartz be back as DC or not?
Of course, I'd rather him be back, but I would never say to a head coach, "You got to hire this guy."
Well, I don't think they did say that. I think they said we would like to retain him.
We're getting hung up, I think, on some of the language here
Yeah.
and some of the verbiage. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Browns telling a candidate, "Hey, we really like him. Take a look at him."
Yeah, I don't either.
If there's a fit, and that very well could
That's
be what
fine.
they're saying.
I don't have a problem
That's
with it
why I
that
think
way.
we're getting too hung up on some of
But
the
do
language.
you trust Jimmy to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's handling that properly?
We won't know.
Yeah, actually, I kind of do. If they try and force a coordinator
Yeah.
on any coach, I said Friday, if you're forcing a coordinator on a coach, you got the wrong coach.
Yes.
Because no coach would ever agree to that.
That's right.
But there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, of having an interview and saying, listen, we've had a lot of success here defensively. We love Jim. He's been a big part of what we've done around here on that side of the ball. Take a look at him.
Yeah.
And if it's a fit, great. If it's not, okay. You pick you
All right,
have.
I mean, that I wouldn't have a problem with.
I tend to think
I don't
that's
buy he's
what's
doing
going
it that way.
on.
I would
Sometimes-
think so.
Sometimes in these reports, language is lost
Yes.
and nuance isn't there.
Yes.
And you have to understand that we've got the primary statement that Browns management would encourage whoever gets the head coaching job to keep him, or they would like to keep him. But there's so much nuance to that.
But that also could factor into who they're talking to. Like, what? There's not no defensive coach is going to want to keep Jim Schwartz as the DC.
I think also
no, I can't imagine they
Yeah.
would.
we have to take into consideration too. If there's a difference between if you're going to go get a Harbaugh or a guy who's already had coaching experience
agree
in the
with that,
league
too.
and that already has an established connection with people that they trust. But if you're bringing in a first-time coordinator type who hasn't called plays, who does not have an extensive track record and a Rolodex of guys he can depend on in the league, it's an advantage for a guy like that to say, well, at least all I got to do is worry about this.
Right.
I'm trying to learn how to throw challenge flags, time management. I got to, you need to do a lot of different things as a first-time head coach. And it's actually an asset to have somebody that you can lean on who is a former head coach that the defense believes in, that you at least on that side of the ball, that guy is competent. He will get the guys to play hard, and I can concentrate on some other things that I could do better and acclimate myself to being a first-time head coach. So I think there's a difference between how you couch this conversation with a veteran coach who you're looking at and an upstart that you don't have much of a track record.
I think it's going to be interesting, even though nobody else appears to be interested in Schwartz as a head coach, if he doesn't get the job, if he'll want to leave.
He would have options as a DC.
Yes,
absolutely.
100%. Any team would
He
take
might
it.
go with Kevin. Wherever Kevin goes, Kevin
may.
might pull him with him.
Yep, he may. It's entirely possible.
He'll have a job somewhere. Jim Schwartz is going to have a
Now,
job
the one
somewhere.
thing is Jimmy would probably pay him as much as anybody to be the DC. So.
I would think
Yeah,
so.
if he does-
But he
pays
just
his
may
players
want to
more
go.
than anybody.
If he didn't want to be there, don't make a guy stay. Don't want to be there, especially after a coaching change.
Absolutely.
I think I look at it from a standpoint of Jim Schwartz to me is the ultimate fall guy. Not the fall guy that's taking the fall, but he's the fallback guy. If I'm going to swing for the fences and get Harbaugh, and maybe he do an interview or don't do an interview, if I bring Mike McDaniel in, he said I'm cool on that. You know what I'm saying? He has other options. At least they're thinking of it like this is at least my ace in the hole. If push come to shove and I don't get my top names, I like Jim Schwartz better than all of the new guys. And at least I have a floor. At least I got a point where, okay, I got a guy who checks a lot of boxes. He's already been in the building, so he's dealt with Jimmy. He's dealt with Andrew Berry. There's familiarity. He already has the defense, and their defense has played well. Myles Garrett has had his best career. The rookies that you got had great seasons under him. And you know for a fact that he's already acclimated to a lot of this stuff. So all you do, if you can't get the top names, at least you have a guy with this type of resume who has a better resume than some upstarts.
And you know there's not a market for him.
And you know that he's
not going to leave at midnight.
Well, do you want a guy that's been to be the head coach that's been in this building?
I think what G is saying is if all else fails,
yeah, I guess
he's there.
I mean, we talked about that on Friday, where sometimes you just need a whole reset. You need a clean reset. If you're going to change the culture, then change the culture.
I know that we're going to talk about this next, and I'll say this, and then you can break, and then we can go to Harbaugh. But the reason to me he is the absolute candidate is because he has laid down the ground rules. I'll come, but I'm not doing things the way you've done them because it's proven failure. I'm going to come, and I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to pay my guys. I'm going to have a good staff. And I don't want any meddling. And this might be, I always say there's no safety net for the Browns. There's no parachute because Jimmy's the owner. And as long as he's the owner, I believe he's going to meddle. If he thinks he has a chance to get a Hall of Fame coach in John Harbaugh, and it's going to mean removing himself from the decision-making and the day-to-day stuff, then this might be Browns fans' best great option to get to that point. Bring in a guy who's got enough cachet, who can lay down the law and say, I'm not doing it the way you've done it. You've tried that for 13 years. Look what it's got you. I'm coming with my system. I'm bringing my way.